I'm a co-founder of Power Capital Renewable Energy. We're a photovoltaic development company established in 2011. We have been building solar assets in Germany, Italy, and we now see a market here in Ireland. And I suppose that's what I'm just going to talk about a little bit about today. So what I'm going to just cover very quickly is how solar PV works for those who don't really understand how it works. I'll just do a very quick summary of that. Construction methods, the market as we see it here in Ireland, why Ireland has a late mover advantage in comparison to maybe some of the other countries around Europe that have deployed this technology since kind of around 2000. What's the business case for solar PV in Ireland, equipment, bankability, warranties, and then just kind of quick conclusion on it. So how does solar PV work? Well, it's very simple. The technology has been around a long time. Sunlight hits the PV module, creates the photoelectric effect. That creates a DC current. The DC current goes into an inverter, which changes that current to alternating current, which is what's coming out of your sockets. So very simple. It's a proven technology at this stage, and has been deployed quite significantly across Europe, and is now becoming one of the fastest installed energy generators globally. So construction methods, what type of methods can we use? Well, this is one of our projects here in Germany. That's near enough to Hamburg, so very similar radiance levels or sunshine levels as you would have here in Ireland. That project is a ground-mounted project, about 3.6 megawatt. As you can see, we've got two panels there in portrait. That produce, for every 4 panels that we install, for every 1 kilowatt, we're producing about 950 kilowatt hours on that system, which would be very similar to what we'd be producing here if we built that system here in Ireland. Some other types of ground-mounted assets, again, this one is not one we did, but again, it's a tracking system. You see those in, you see them across maybe the States, some parts of Italy. You'll see that, and again, we've seen some other technologies deployed, such as floating ones. One was done there in the UK relatively recently. Again, what you're looking to do is just utilise land space that's otherwise, that's not being used for anything. Okay, construction methods, kind of in relation to rooftop. Well, this again is another one of our projects here. We built this one on the top of a logistics centre in a place called Baden-Württemberg, which is in not far from Stuttgart. It's a flat roof system. We're not penetrating the roof membrane there at all, so the system is ballasted onto the roof. Obviously, what we have to take into consideration there is the static load on the roof. Obviously, you get an engineer in to deal with all that side of it. But again, that system there was about a 1 megawatt built on the rooftop of a logistics centre feeding into the grid of Germany. Again, another just kind of way you can look at it here is a sloped roof or a pitched roof. What you're looking at there is the south side of the pitch, and obviously that's facing south. Obviously you want your system as close to 180 degrees south as you possibly can, because that gets your best production or best yield out of the system due to the sunshine. On this side of it, it's north facing, so you can see that what we had to do there was change the type of mounting system to allow for the sloping north side of the roof. So it brought it back up. So these are some of the key considerations that you need to take into account when you're kind of putting a system together. Orientation and inclination, as I said. What you're looking there is to have it as close to south as you possibly can, 180 degrees south. Inclination is obviously important because that tends to tell you how far apart you have to have your spacing between your modules in relation to the strings, or in relation to if it's a ground-mounted system, in relation to kind of the mounting system that you put in place. Shading is obviously very important, and again, that can be important for a number of reasons to the way you actually design the system. So if you've got panels in series and 1 or 2 of those panels are shaded, it'll bring down that whole string. So even the panels that are not shaded, it'll bring the actual production of that system right down. So shading is one of the important things to take into consideration when kind of designing either a roof-mounted system or a ground-mounted system. Touched earlier on just on live and static loads. Obviously the structural, again, if you look at the roof up here, there's probably a listed building. Probably not a great example, but again, if you're putting a PV system on that roof, you need to take into consideration the roof trusses, the structural load, and make sure that anything that you're putting there is going to stay and not cause any sort of structural issues for the building. Cable routes, roof condition of membrane. Obviously, PV system, when you install it, they have a very long life. 25 years typically is the warranty lifespan of a PV module. What you're looking at there is if you put a system under a flat roof, say for example, and there's a membrane underneath that, is that membrane in good condition? Is it going to last the same period of time as the actual installation, the PV installation? Does the roof membrane maybe need to be upgraded prior to putting that installation in there? Obviously, the installation costs are make up quite a significant part of the overall installation price of the system. If you put it on a roof membrane that needs to be repaired or needs to be upgraded within that sort of period of time, you're going to obviously have to deinstall that system and reinstall it. Again, going back to say maybe the first rooftop one I showed you there, which is the one in Baden-Württemberg, we used approximately 2/3 of that roof space and left 1/3 of it free. In the event that they wanted to do any sort of upgrade on that roof membrane, we could shift that PV system to another part of the roof without incurring having to take the whole system down and reinstall it. So you got to think forward as well as what you're doing just at the time. So health and safety, obviously, if you're doing ground-mounted system or you're doing working at heights, obviously it's very important if you're working at heights to make sure your health and safety compliant. All that sort of stuff with scaffolding is very important and can have a significant impact in relation to the cost of your installation. So something just to bear in mind if you are looking to do kind of rooftop stuff. Just come back to that very briefly. Planning permission is kind of one thing at the moment which is interesting here in Ireland. If we look across to our nearest neighbour, the UK will allow for no planning permission required for anything up to 1 megawatt of a rooftop installation. At the moment here in Ireland, anything over 12 square metres requires planning permission. So if you take that as a residential house, that's about 1.7 kilowatt of an installation prior to you needing planning permission, which is pretty ridiculous. So us as an association company have approached the Department of Environment to kind of get that sort of restriction removed. For example, we had to get planning permission for the one that we're installing on AIB across the way there. Again, you couldn't even see that. It's below the roof parapet. Totally, there's no visibility issues at all. But again, just because of the way things are, you had to get planning permission for it. We'd like to see that change over the course of the next, few months, and relax planning guidelines around that. Obviously, ground-mounted assets, you will need to have planning on it. That's you're changing the land usage, so planning permission is obviously prerequisite there. I suppose one of the other things that you have to bear in mind when you're looking at putting a PV system in place is in relation to the DNO, and in this instance it's ESB networks. So ESB networks have specific conditions that you'd have to adhere to in relation to either doing a commercial rooftop project, even if it has a zero export capacity, where you're designing the system to say for example the commercial entity's base load. You still have to comply with certain regulations with ESB on that. If you're looking at ground-mounted assets, again, there's a specific process that you have to deal with ESB networks and that. So bear in mind, 5 minutes, okay. In relation to kind of just give you a quick look at the global markets. So Germany really was the poster child of the solar world since 2000. But over the last few years, we've seen kind of new markets, just China, Japan, and the USA overtake the annual installed capacity of Germany. Flicking on again, kind of just very quickly, what we looked at here, 2015, 8.1 gigawatt of PV systems were installed in Europe. Just to give you an idea, in 2012, Germany installed 7 gigawatt themselves. Looking maybe just kind of UK, Germany, and France, who are kind of the market leaders over the last couple of years. What you're seeing here is a chart that shows kind of just the percentage there. So the United Kingdom, which is probably our nearest neighbour, has deployed nearly 7 gigawatt of solar over the last 24 months, which is quite an impressive amount. Just to give you a look at where Ireland sits in comparison to the rest of Europe. Here's Italy, Greece, and Germany producing about 8% of their total energy from solar. Ireland sits down here beside Latvia and Estonia. So we have a good way to catch up, and we need legislation to kind of catch up with even our nearest neighbour. Okay, so the closest comparison to Ireland really is the UK. We have similar climate. They're a member of the EU, well, currently a member of the EU, depending on what happens over the next few weeks. They have put a legislation in place since 2010, and they deployed about 10 gigawatt of PV to date. 25% of that residential, 24% of that commercial rooftop, and then the rest of it is made up by utility scale ground-mounted assets. So again, that's just showing you kind of the different bandings of that. Okay, unlike other countries, very little solar has been deployed in Ireland to date. That's due to lack of legislation, lack of support mechanisms, PPAs. So we have a great last mover advantage here. So solar accounts for a tiny amount of the energy mix here in Ireland. Why should we start deploying it? Well, Ireland has energy targets to meet by 2020. And it's highly likely that we'll miss those. Missing those means that we could be fines anywhere from 140 million to maybe 600 million a year. Solar can be deployed relatively quickly when compared to other technologies such as wind. Planning conditions are far more favourable towards it. So again, if you just take for example our previous project, the one in Germany, similar latitude to what we have in Ireland, similar radiance, similar production. The difference is legislative support allows for that in Germany, where we don't have that here. Rapid deployment, again, just touching back on this. So we have 2.5 megawatts of renewable energy on the grid at the minute. Our target was to get to 4.8 by 2020. We are going to struggle to get to that. The deployment of wind has slowed down quite significantly due to planning issues, and solar can be deployed a lot faster. If we just have even look across the UK or any of our European colleagues, you'll see that solar can be deployed much faster than many other technologies to get us to our 2020 targets. This again, just to give you kind of a quick look, this is a solar radiation map here in Ireland. So we get 78% of the sunshine that we get in Madrid. So if we put 4 panels in Madrid and we put 4 panels here in Ireland, we'll get about 78% of the production that you would have in Madrid. Why does it make sense now? Well, this just very quickly, just decided, because this is on the front, we took the convention centre just as an example. We just put that through solar gaze. Effectively, what we can stick on the top of the convention centre is 40 kilowatt, and that would produce 34 megawatt hours in a year. Again, just moving that on a little bit further, if we took the Hub Docklands, everything you see there in red, if we were to put PV on the roof there, we'd be looking at about 4.9 megawatts, nearly 5 megawatts, producing nearly 4,500 megawatt hours in a year, and reducing the carbon by 2.4 thousand or 2,300 tonnes a year. Just again, kind of the business case for solar here in Ireland, the capital cost of PV panels has reduced significantly since 2011 and has surpassed many people's expectations in relation to that. That reduction has been very aggressive. We've seen a 42% reduction in PV panel prices since 2011, which currently stand at 56 cent a watt, which has been artificially held up at the moment actually by minimum import pricing, which is kind of, if the minimum import pricing issues were resolved, that would actually fall well below that 50 cent number. Again, just kind of giving you a kind of quick look. Our first project, this is kind of looking at kind of pricing for PV modules. Again, we built our first plant back there in 2011, a 1 megawatt plant, about 2.5 million. The last 1 megawatt one we did was about 1.3. So it's quite a significant drop. So what that means is the levelized cost of energy has reduced significantly on PV, which is why Ireland has a late mover advantage and starts to make sense here. Again, you're just looking at kind of, just kind of very briefly on this one, levelized cost of ground-mounted assets, you're talking about maybe 140 euros a megawatt hour, commercial rooftop just under 200 euros a megawatt hour, and residential, again, you're up there at about just 250, 160 euros a megawatt hour. What we're seeing here is just a graph in relation to wholesale prices, whether it be residential, retail, domestic. If I overlay the two, you can see here that there's a point in time where, solar doesn't need that subsidy. It's actually getting to that point of grid parity. Okay, I'll flick on because I know under pressure. Solar PV can help businesses address corporate and social responsibility. Maybe some of your customers, your clients have a corporate and social responsibility agenda running within their business. Solar is one of the technologies that can help. We saw in the white paper a mention to energy citizens, and solar anywhere with a roof really that doesn't have shading. We can turn all those buildings into energy citizens. It is a technology that everybody can really take advantage of. Okay, again, positive public perception. Solar energy continues to grow in popularity due to limited no landscape visual impact. well-selected solar sites do not have the same issues in relation to visual impact that some other technologies have. There's little or no noise pollution, so again, flicker that you might see from turbines, none of that. Noise is very limited. Compatibility with agriculture, such as grazing. So again, what you'll see at the moment is there's a couple of applications gone in for planning where you'll see for ground-mounted assets where the farmer can still graze his sheep and do various different agriculture stuff along there. Okay, so if you're picking a PV provider, what should you look for? Well, you should look for experience and track record. They're not all the same, and I can tell you that installers there can be poles apart in relation to quality of installations. Design principles, you got to just make sure that what you're doing is giving you the optimum design, optimum yield. Quality of the equipment being used. Again, a solar panel is not a solar panel. The manufacturing process of them differs hugely, and if you go to some factories and you look at the way they're being manufactured in comparison to the market leaders, there's a significant difference, and you need to think about this as a long-term investment. If you're looking for finance on it, again, are the companies that you're buying your systems off, are the warranties strong? Is the balance sheet of that company good? And is that company going to be there if you need to come back and use that warranty? Okay, so then just in conclusion, 12 panels placed on a roof in Dublin, on a house in Dublin, will produce about 2,700 kilowatt hours per year, which is about 50% the usage of a kind of a 3-bedroom house. A 3-bedroom house uses between 5,000 and 6,000 kilowatt hours in a year. Put 12 panels on the roof of that, and you'll be producing about 2,700 kilowatt hours a year. So again, this is just a conversation that Thomas Edison had with Henry Ford. You know, he put his money on the sun and solar power. What a source of power. Hope we don't have to wait until oil and coal run out before we tackle that. That was in 1931, so a long time ago. That's it, guys.